All right, by the end of the year, 5 families from Hamilton will be able to read the SIU's details on the deaths of their loved ones killed by police. This is due to a recommendation from a review and the Ontario government. To talk more about all of this, Dave McCormick is with us, Executive Vice President of Business Development, Investigative Solutions Network, Inc., and on the line with us now. Hello, Dave. How are you today?
I'm doing well, Scott. Thank you. How are you?
Good. Thanks for taking the time to join us. To those that aren't in this line of work, what was the objective of the police oversight review? What happened here, in your opinion?
Well, the objective was pretty much what it was very back in the beginning when the SIU first came into being, is that a large segment of the population was unhappy with the result and the apparent investigation of police officers when they came into contact with members of the public that resulted in death or serious bodily harm. The public felt that the police were not being held accountable and that there was not an independent, transparent body in place to investigate and take appropriate action. And we've seen that surface again in the last couple of years, and we've seen demonstrations in the streets of Toronto and elsewhere. And I think that's what has caused that the further review to be conducted as requested of Justice Michael Tulloch, and that's where we are now.
So what are your thoughts on the Independent Police Oversight Review?
So the portions that I've read pertaining particularly to the SIU, I would have to say that I agree with very much the most part of what Justice Tulloch has to say. It is an organization that needs to be seen, the SIU that is, as totally independent of any police force, of the OPP commissioner. And as the fact is today that it doesn't appear to be. And there is always a segment of the public that thinks that it is almost an arm of a police body. It's crucial that there is independent overview. And for those types of injuries, those types of deaths, as well as public complaints. And that's what Justice Tulloch was tasked with. I think it's an entity that needs to exist. And the basis for policing in Ontario and in Canada is based upon trust. And that public trust has to be there that the police officers are out doing the proper thing. And when there is an opportunity to investigate whether they did or they didn't, based on fact, you certainly have to have an independent body that has the teeth to do that.
So, in your opinion, what is different now post this review?
Well, one of the biggest things I think is the release of the reports by the SIU director. So the director's final report, Justice Tulloch is making strong arguments that they be released in modified formats depending on the initial investigation circumstances and the outcome to the public each and every time. So where the SIU invokes its mandate and lays charges, he is suggesting that a report go out, in which case the subject officer of the matter is named. In those instances where the SIU has invoked its mandate in the initial instance, but then has withdrawn from the case because usually it didn't meet the criteria once they started to dig into it, the injury is not there, or in some instances where there is zero cooperation from the person who was injured, he's saying that in each and every instance, those should be released to the public. I think that's the biggest change. I mean, there are an awful lot of recommendations covering a lot of areas, but those are some of the more spectacular ones that are coming out of this report, as well as identifying and not identifying.
So, should these names be given? Should victims' families know who the officer was that was involved in these?
Well, I agree strongly with what Justice Tulloch has said here. In those instances where the investigation leads to criminal charges of a police officer, I feel, as Justice Tulloch does, that yes, that officer should be named, right, as would any other member of the public facing similar charges. In instances where an investigation is conducted into criminality and the SIU comes to the conclusion that there are no grounds to lay criminal charges, right, then just as any other member of the public who was involved in such an investigation, those subject officers should not be named. And I think it's a fair process to follow.
Is there still much demand for names of those officers to be released? Again, you know, your case seems like common sense at this point. Is there still people wanting to know that information?
Oh, I suspect there will be a lot of people that still want to know that information. They will figure that in each and every instance, the police officer who is perceived to have caused this injury or death should have his or her name out there in the public, despite the outcome of the SIU investigation. You're never going to satisfy everybody, Scott.
Yeah, good point. Have families been kept in the dark in this sort of thing over the past? In the past, I mean, under the old system, was there a way to stop this from happening?
Well, for clarity, we are still under the old system. I mean, these were recommendations that Justice Tulloch has come out with. I'm not aware of them being implemented yet. But there was certainly some perception that families were left in the dark, in that the SIU director did not have to release the reports in a public fashion. So when that happens, and keeping in mind that these are families of somebody who has lost their lives during interaction with the police or has been very, very seriously injured, any family in any situation like that is going to be looking for as much information as possible. They're going to want to know what happened to their family member. And yeah, in the past, they haven't received a lot of information from the SIU or from the police, albeit the police have their hands a little bit tied based on the current legislation where they're not allowed to make any comment about the ongoing investigation by the SIU. So I think in the big picture, Justice Tulloch has taken an approach that will satisfy a much larger segment of the population, whether they're involved or not, because he also speaks to those matters where there would be such a significant public interest that the SIU could release those reports, again, redacted in a fashion that would ensure privacy for those people that were involved, especially subject officers, civilian witnesses, police witnesses. But providing enough information for the public to be satisfied that, yes, there was a thorough and transparent investigation into this matter, and whether they like the outcome or they don't, the outcome is just.
Will there be challenges going forward if these recommendations are implemented? Is there anything that stands out that could be challenging in the future?
Well, nothing is jumping off of the report to me, but going down the road, there's always challenges to any type of a change. Justice Tulloch is calling for this to be a private piece of legislation that is outside of the Police Services Act where it's currently governed, as well as the OIPRD and the OCPC. So when you get a new piece of legislation, there will always be some legal challenges to it, and there will be case law that will amend it and regulations to amend the actual provincial legislation. So going forward, there's always going to be challenges anytime something new comes out. And as I said earlier, and you agreed, there's always going to be a segment of the population that is never going to be happy, regardless of what's implemented, for all of the right reasons.
Obviously, we've heard police investigating police. That's what seems to get the public upset about this. Is there room for private citizens to do this? I mean, are there private organizations that are qualified to look into this stuff, or do we need a certain amount of police oversight on these?
Well, we definitely need police oversight on these, and I think the police welcome police oversight on these. Private organizations, off the top of my head, I would say no, although there are a lot of private organizations that do investigate a case on behalf of a client to say, yes, the findings were just, or no, the findings were improper, and here are some of the reasons why. But when you look at the actual makeup of the current SIU, you're looking at 67% of their investigators being former police, and that is to say that 33% are not. Now, Justice Tulloch is asking for that number to be higher, but he also recognizes that when you draw from the general population, you could find very, very many regular members of the public who are highly qualified, but they also may have a strong bias towards the police. And they're going to be as potentially ineffective as our hiring police officers who come in and say, I don't care what I see, I'm not going to find that the police officers did anything wrong. And the flip side is also true. I mean, you see a large number of police officers who are so full of integrity and ethics that they carry out these investigations and they let the evidence take them to wherever the evidence takes them, and they make a decision based on what the evidence says, regardless of previous alliances with any police service that they may have worked for. So you have to have a fine mix, and I think it brings a real diversity of opinion, a diversity of experience, and a diversity of view to the findings. I think it's a great mix to have.
Obviously, as you said, you're not going to please everybody all the time. Will this alleviate public's concerns moving forward if these are implemented?
I think it will certainly go a long way to alleviating the vast majority of the public's concerns.
Dave McCormick has been with us, Executive Vice President of Business Development, Investigative Solutions Network, Inc. Dave, as always, thanks for the time. Much appreciated.
My pleasure, Scott. Anytime. Have a great day.
You too. It is 12:23.